Alrighty, welcome back to the International Wealth Builders Association radio talk show. I'm your host, LaToyaTillett, here speaking with Lionel Thomas, real estate appraiser / realtor as well. So we've been kind of talking a little bit about some differences in the types of appraisals that he does, or the differences in appraisals that are out there. So he mentioned ADUs before we went to the last segment, and I know that's been a very huge discussion. I actually attended an ADU summit last weekend, which was very interesting, where one of my business partners spoke, Ms. Sharon Barnes, or Dr. Sharon Barnes, sorry, excuse me. So Dr. Sharon Barnes, she shed some light on the new California laws that are out there around ADUs and, putting them on commercial properties as well as commercial properties. So with an ADU, when you come across a property that has an ADU, is there anything different that goes into the valuation of the ADU?
Yes.
Okay. So how does it work? Because at this point now, it's more than one unit.
Yeah. Well,
so is it considered like a 2-unit? Or?
I should say, the right process that I think should be used is if the home is zoned residential or R1,
okay,
then you should find other R1 zone properties that have that ADU in the back.
Okay.
Right?
Right.
Because generally with R1 properties, they're not going to put a second gas meter. They're going to limit the utilities. So the ADU is going to always be subservient to the house because it just doesn't have its own things. But there's like SB 9 and SB 10, I think are going to address some of these things.
Okay.
But did that answer the question? I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, I was just pretty much asking like how you would value a property that has an ADU on it.
Yes.
And then, so the property you just spoke about, you said had multiple ADUs on it.
Well,
so
it had one ADU with four bedrooms and bathrooms that were kind of like apartment-like, but a common area. And it's just, I think in this case, a brilliant design.
Okay.
Right? Just a brilliant design, kind of like college dorm feel.
Really?
Because it's a very small common area, obviously plenty of outdoor space, but each individual room and bathroom and each individual room had its own entry door from the outside.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So
okay, that's different.
I was vastly impressed. I was happy to see it and kind of witness it and like plant it in my brain so that it's in my future, right?
Yeah. So you get your brain thinking of different ways to invest. You know, we're all about international wealth building.
Yep.
You can build wealth here in the States. You can build wealth outside of the States.
Yep.
However you need to do it. But then just having that, that time or that to be able to think outside the box.
Yes.
Out of traditional ways of investing. Because, everybody knows the basics. Okay, you can do fix and flips. You can wholesale or you can buy rental properties. But to be able to take a property and transform it into something that's going to create even more wealth.
Yeah, use
just
your
with
equity.
One property.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
I think that's really an amazing thing that, it gets creative. It's all about being creative as an investor and creating, a diverse portfolio.
From what I can understand, and no disrespect to anyone in any city government, but it seems like the cities are some cities are accepting it, some cities are not.
Right.
And they're kind of like iffy on are they going to let you do it or not? And that's creating a little bit of friction, even though the state of California already gave pretty much the green light to do it.
Right, right.
But I guess to kind of talk about the process of valuing them, I would look at the zoning. I'd make sure that my comps have the same zoning.
Okay.
Then I'd look at the ADU and make sure my comps have a similar ADU. But in this 4-bedroom, 4-bathroom ADU, obviously there's no other properties like that.
Right.
So in his email they sent me, he was kind of asking me, why didn't I compare his home to the other homes that he owned? And I told him, like, oh, well, these homes aren't for sale or they haven't sold, so they wouldn't be a comparable.
Right.
That's some people don't know that. So when you're valuing a home, we're looking at homes that have recently sold because those are indicators of the current market value or the current value in the area. Mm-hmm. That's what a comparable sale is or a comparable listing.
Yeah, so it makes it comparable.
Yeah.
You can't compare it to something that
arbitrarily just sitting there.
You just haven't done anything, but it's just sitting there hanging out. And
yeah.
It's like, you can't compare that. And it has to be a recent sale. How recent of a sale do you guys look for when you're doing the appraisals?
Well, if it's an ADU, mind you, there's already a very limited amount of sales available.
Right.
So you're going to go back further, maybe a year or 2 years. You're going to search a wider area, maybe 3 to 5 miles. It depends, whatever you have to do to define the value so that at the end of the day, when you sign that report, you're comfortable with the results.
Okay.
Because ultimately, that's what it is.
Okay, but, that's good to know.
I would go back in time and I would search a wider area in order to try to match the subject's features, apples for apples.
Okay. And I know, back in the day, people were building, like where I grew up, in my house, we had what we called the back house.
Yeah.
That's what it was back then.
Yeah.
It was the back house.
Yeah.
It was in the back. And it was a house.
Yeah.
And so
like a playhouse or a rompers room or whatever.
Yeah, rompers room. I know we had that come up before, and it had a shower, full bathroom and everything. It just didn't have a kitchen. It had a closet, big open space.
It had a heater?
It was pretty cool. It had a heater.
Okay. That's pretty.
And it was
area.
it was next to the garage. Well, pretty much on the same building structure as the garage.
Attached.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's pretty cool, but you couldn't enter from the garage into there.
That's an interesting topic right there, because I've heard I helped on a file for a lender client where they got an appraisal back, and the homeowner ordered they were trying to do like an addition loan. Okay. And this appraiser, they were upset with what the appraiser valued this ADU as, and when I seen the ADU, it was actually just a room addition, like an attached room. And I thought, like, well, why are they calling it ADU? And when you look at it as a room addition, then you increase the square footage of the living area of that property. You increase the room count, and opposed to saying it's like a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom with a 1-bedroom, 1-bathroom ADU, if you just say it's a 4-bedroom, 3-bathroom, you have value there. Oh. And that's what I told the lender, and then they ordered a new appraisal. I'm not sure what happened since then, but just the design. Once I seen the architectural design, I realized, like, you're calling it an ADU, but it's really like a room addition.
It's a room addition.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
And then the way that whole was presented to the appraiser, I think led him in that route of valuing as ADU rather than just as a bigger house. But that's a discussion in itself.
Right. Because I'm wondering why that happened now. I know there's the junior ADUs that you can do.
Those are attached.
Similar. Yes, they're attached. There's also one that I heard of, my business partner was actually working with, where they wanted to take their master bedroom and separate it from the main house, but still attached and everything.
The interior space.
So they kind of converted it and had a separate interest on the outside, so that the mother-in-law could have that as her
private
home and still feel like she has some type of independence, but still be close to them.
Little granny quarters.
Yes, right? Because it's like, there's so many names for it. You got granny flats.
I know, right?
Butler's quarters. Pool house. You just there's so many different names for different things.
Yes.
Yeah, and it's pretty much essentially at the base is the same thing.
Yeah.
And so now we got the ADU, which is the accessory dwelling unit.
So that's why I say, is there a heater? Because for it to be, as an appraiser, or in my opinion, for it to be considered as a living space, it needs to have a heater. It needs to have these functions.
Right.
So for me to value it similarly to what I would value this other living area.
Right.
So that's kind of why I explore that conversation.
Okay.
But the bottom line is, whatever you do to a home is going to add the value. But like, maybe 4 months ago or months ago in April, it maybe added more value than what it adds now, because the oversupply of homes for sale.
Okay.
So
are you seeing an oversupply right now? I mean, I know the market is changing. We are definitely seeing a shift, not a crash per se, but definitely a shift. So how are you seeing it from the appraiser standpoint?
There seems to be more homes on the market for longer.
Okay.
It depends on what market. I mean, I try to do 4 appraisals a day, so I'm kind of bouncing from place to place to place. But a lot of times, before I render the final estimate market value, I look at the housing supply and like how many comparable homes are actually for sale.
Okay.
And that is an indicator to me of like, how, like, not how risky, but how high can I value this? Because if there's 10 other homes for sale, well that they're not going to pay the most for this property. They're going to look at these 10 homes and potentially pay the least amount, or negotiate it depending on the features that are there.
Of course.
So I like to look at the supply and try to use that as an indicator of how high I can value the home, if that makes sense.
Okay, that does make sense. Okay, so it just kind of helps me think differently in terms of when I'm taking on a listing. Yeah, so that's another thing that I can kind of look around at too. And
it's like really Teletubbies. If there's 50 Teletubbies, what are they worth?
Like, you can't pay $10 for the Teletubby if all the other ones are selling for $2. So.
Yeah, no way. It had to be special. Maybe it has a diamond eye or something like that.
Right? That's hilarious. That's really funny. So it was kind of cool growing up with the back house, because me and my friends used to hang out back there, and I'm like, oh, okay, it was like my own little area and everything.
Own little apartment, huh?
Yeah, my own little apartment when I didn't want to be in my room or in the house with my mom. And so I know one time the city came out and said that we needed to like board up the shower because it wasn't considered by the city as a living quarters.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, and they were like, "Oh, you gotta either tear out the bathroom or board up the shower or something like that." It was really strange, and I was like, "Wow!" But now, I mean, it seems like it's okay as long as it's permitted.
Yeah.
Because then you run into a lot of them that were built that weren't even permitted.
Yeah.
So
Well,
then
that
that's
was
a
a
different issue in itself.
How do I say? It seems like to me in any addition you make or anything you do to your home, you should be able to put a wash basin to wash your hands.
Right.
Especially with COVID, cleanliness has become a very important detail.
Well, that was way pre-COVID.
Yeah. But when you think about it in contrast, like you got a government official coming out to your property and saying that you have to remove this quarters used for cleanliness.
Right.
Which sounds crazy to me, but
it really was. I was like, that's interesting. But my mom's landlord, he never did it. He just left it, the way it was.
Yeah.
Alrighty, so we're gonna go ahead and take another quick commercial break and come back with our last segment and talk to Lionel a little bit more. See you guys in a few.